Right, hello guys, Indomitus Box Set unscripted video. Let's get through this and it'll be fine, no mistakes to be had. Actually, I'm going to show you how to build a model as well at the end of this, show you how to clean the model and get it prepared for painting. Now I'm going to talk as well about the project and how the Indomitus stuff is going to go. As you can see here, this is what we did last time. Last time we were looking at the Executioner tank and arranging my Ultramarine stuff, so this just gives you a little bit of an idea about my painting skill if you haven't seen any of my videos before. So I've really got the Ultramarines kind of down now, I know the process, so we're going to be working on those from the Indomitus Box Set. So I'm going to talk about this a little bit. I want to thank Games Workshop for sending me the Indomitus Box Set. They sent them out to a load of different producers, and so I was just lucky enough, I guess, to get chosen. So thanks very much to those guys for that one. So you can see here the box set, it's a load of plastic, man. There's a ton of plastic, like I said in my community tab. Okay, I'm not going to do an unboxing video. I'm not going to like look in detail at every single little bits and piece, because they did this already on the live stream. They already showed us the whole box set, so there's no point in me doing that. But what I'll say is the whole set, it's a nice set. You know, the Edge of Silence book you've got on the left there goes into the lore a little bit, and it sort of deals with the kind of prior period, prior nexus, and kind of what's happening right now, I guess, in the storyline. Reminder that this set is not aimed necessarily at new players to the game. It's really for people that are just transitioning over, I guess, from 8th to 9th edition. And for people like myself, now, the thing is there's been this whole thing for a long time, of course, about Primaris replacing the old Space Marines. That clearly is happening, and a lot of people are unhappy about that, and I can understand that. But speaking as somebody myself who owns, as you know, as you've seen, a very large force of the classic Space Marines, I'm kind of coming around to it. I mean, it's a way for me to kind of gradually update my existing army anyway, and you know, it's one of those things, you can take it or leave it. You'll notice the unusual 197 box set on the right. I've got a couple of other bits and pieces in this video. So let's talk price point. It's a really good deal for what is in there. Obviously, I didn't pay anything because they sent it to me. But there's a couple of other things on the table here, like that 197 box. Those I bought those things. But let's be real, the price point for what it is, yes, in terms of what you would pay for the models themselves if you bought them as individual boxes, it is actually a really, really good deal. This is going to be an incredibly popular selling piece, and it's going to probably go pretty quickly, but we're going to be interested to see whether this has the same issues we had with the Sisters box set. You remember how that just kind of went instantly. Games Workshop have said they've made a lot of units for this, so hopefully that is not going to be the same problem there yet again. Of course, it's got the rulebook in here. I will talk briefly about that as well. These are some of the other bits I've got going on as well. This is Evriel Stern and the Eldar guy. Kind of only interested in the Sisters. I've got a Sisters army, and I have basically been gradually preparing it. I also bought a big tank for it recently that I'm going to convert, so that's a whole other project which is going to follow on, guys, which I'll showcase for you like I've been doing with the Ultramarines. Obviously in the box you get a load of Necrons, a load of the new Space Marines, the Chaplain looks really epic, the Bikers look really epic. Ever since they did that showcase, obviously on the live stream a while back, I really did like the look of these models. They've obviously got a lot more character to them than the kind of generic Primaris Marines, so it is that kind of transitional evolution that they've been around for a while, and they've started to sort of bleed into the kind of more standard chapter elements, whereas what initially they kind of came fresh out, obviously with their kind of VATs from Belisarius Call, and now they've kind of started to kind of weather into the horror. They've started to be kind of contaminated, if you want, by the 41st, 42nd millennium. So I kind of like that. Look at the plastic. Mountains of plastic. Like I say, you do get a hell of a lot actually in this box for what it is, and I'll tell you now, if they hadn't sent this to me, I would have just got it tomorrow anyway. In fact, I am going to be there tomorrow anyway, 10 AM, because there's a few other bits and pieces that I want. Like, for example, there's a new book from Gav Thorpe, which basically it's got 2 kind of limited edition covers, but it's dealing with the kind of ongoing story, so again, I really want to pick that up tomorrow. This is the little book which comes with it. It's very lightweight, it doesn't have tons and tons of material, but it basically gives you like a good kind of overview basically as to just what is going on. It talks about the Prior Crusade. I picked up the last Psychic Awakening book as well recently, dealing with the Pariahs and the Necron and all that kind of stuff. It's actually pretty good. I'm going to try and talk about that soon. Illuminor Zeras. I've picked him up to go with this as well. They didn't send this to me. I bought this to just go with the set because I wanted him to go with the Necron force, because it's been a long time since I started adding a new army, I suppose, since Sisters. So I want to have a new force of Necrons, because I always really wanted another kind of dark Xenos force. So I've decided to go in there because the models just look epic, and I have just fallen for it, hook, line and sinker, quite honestly. This is the rulebook. Now what I wanted to show you guys here is just what else is in the rulebook other than the rules. There is a lot of beautiful photos, but there is also a good solid amount of lore in there. Now the interesting thing here is, of course, that like I said, with the box itself, it's not aimed at new people, but obviously this rulebook will be part of whatever set they do for new people. So there is a solid chunk of lore, as there usually is in a good rulebook for 40k. Now I'm not going to talk in detail about all the changes with the rules and what that means and so on and so on. I might at some point do that, but this channel is not focused on the tabletop gaming side of things. It's focused much more on the kind of painting and the kind of visual elements, and obviously the lore, the background elements, and that's the kind of stuff that I want to focus on. Really is kind of more the atmosphere, the things which accompany the tabletop game. And I also think that you guys just don't have a huge appetite for sitting here and listening to me talk for like 30 minutes, 40 minutes about all the ins and outs of all that kind of stuff. But what I will say is that, as you can see here from the images, I think the text, and generally it's very consumable, it's laid out well, it's pretty clear, they've done some good jobs with bullet pointing and so on and so on. So my point being, I think it's quite digestible. This is obviously a criticism which is sort of aimed at the rulebook, that they're not worded properly, that they're not very sort of easy to understand for new people, or that sometimes they're just confusing, and that's why they end up doing so many errata, because it's just they constantly have to amend things to make it clear to people what they actually meant. And I think in this rulebook, from what I have gone through and read, it seems much more easy to understand comparative to other things. But again, people may disagree, but that was my impression when I sort of read and looked through everything. Okay, so what is in this box? What is in the 197 box? Well, I wouldn't say that I am a collector of 40k, but I would say I have a collection of 40k things, and therefore I like to add to that collection from time to time. I'm not a collector because I'm not one of those people that has to have absolutely every special edition of everything that there is. But if there's a nice thing that I like, I kind of want to get it. And this was the one that I picked up the other day. I was lucky to get this Afrios Stern, and she is of course a famous sister of battle. There is a whole story, and the Demonofuge book which goes along with that, 20th anniversary edition. And I just really wanted to showcase this today because I thought this was an especially nice box set. Now some people are not going to give a solid care in the world about some of these special editions. Fair enough, that is entirely your thing, because at the end of the day these are entirely subjective things. But I happen to really enjoy the kind of beautiful kind of build of a special edition stuff. I like having the books which are very nice and have the extra sort of artwork and so on and so on. Just a thing that I happen to like. I don't do it for every single book or every single thing which comes out. Just if something catches my eye and I happen to like it. Demonofuge, as you can see, is a graphic novel, and again, it's been around for some time, so I'm not going to kind of go through all of that today. Now here's another thing. These are the special bits and pieces which come with this special edition of the books, and as is the case with gaming special editions, sometimes it can be just kind of any old nonsense that they sort of throw in there to sell. And I would say there's a little bit of that here. There's like the badge down the bottom left of a sister. It's like, okay, whatever. It's not, I don't think that's great. But the dice are very nice. The wax seal is very nice. The little coin that comes with it, I think, is very nice. So there was a few bits and pieces here which I thought, yeah, okay, you know, these are sort of some nice elements that I wouldn't mind sort of having. For example, I picked up a while back the, what are they called? I've got it right on the desk in front of me, Sabbat Worlds. The Sabbat Worlds coaster set. They actually are really nice, so I've been really enjoying those, and I've picked up some odd pin badges and bits and pieces along the way. So again, this is very much kind of things that I just happen to see and think, yeah, you know, I'll add that to my collection. So then we come to the units from the box. What the hell am I going to do with them? Well, obviously the Space Marines will just add to my Ultramarines army, so I'm going to be building those and painting those. That is my focus. I've spent a good long while getting the paint recipe down and kind of understanding like the best way that I paint my army to get it to look consistent, but also I'm going to try and paint these as fast as possible so I can get them here on the channel in another follow-up video for you guys. So I'm going to see how quickly I can kind of get all that stuff done. But what about the Necrons? Well, they're going to be painted up by Siege Studios, my channel sponsor, and as this is one of the first commissions I've ever done, I'm going to have to work out the colour scheme, how they're going to be painted. And I was trying to experiment with this, which is basically, they're kind of like pearlescent paints. There's a few different companies that do them. This is Green Stuff Worlds, and the thing that I found is that whilst they can look really interesting on a spoon when you spray paint them, and they basically have like a pearlescent colour effect, they really are very inconsistent and vary in different lights, and depending on how you paint them, it's very difficult to get a very consistent cover with that. And this is why I started looking into, okay, maybe we need to just revert to standard painting systems. And that's where we came to these guys. Now these are not painted, these I just put into Photoshop and I played around with to try and give myself an idea of colours. There was a load of other ones which I've discarded. It's basically come down to these three. It was basically the red guy, the one where he's sort of black and not really, it's not rust, it's almost meant to be kind of like bled colour, or it's part of their environment. And then the other guy which has got this kind of topaz, kind of like cyan element with some orange going on there. I'm personally leaning at the moment more towards the orange guy and the one where he's got the kind of black and the rust element going on. The reason being, the red, as striking as it is probably going to be very difficult to replicate in terms of painting. You'd probably have to do silver and then overlay sort of glazes or washes or obviously like contrast or something like this, but to get it vibrant enough and consistent enough without it looking bad in terms of colour pooling there, I'm not convinced that that would be easy to do. So I think one of the other two is where we're leaning at. But again, you guys will see this first on the channel when I get them done and back, and that will be a video which is part of this series. Now another exciting thing which goes with this, because I'm doing this Necron army now, I obviously want some scenery and elements to go with that, and there's some guys at Death Ray Designs. They basically make terrain and scenery in terms of they make kits which you can put together and use for your scenery on your tabletop, or if you want to make a display board or whatever. And I've wanted to do something with these guys for a while, so they are very kindly going to send me over these new Necron tower and pylons. There's actually a whole load of other stuff which goes with it to make kind of like a temple complex, and I'm going to be showcasing that for you on the channel. You can see some of their work here as well, and the link for their website is down below, so you can go and check out more of their stuff if you want to have a look at that. They're also based in the US, you guys might want to know, so if you're in the UK, it's a little expensive to ship over here, but I know that a lot of my audience is in the US, so I thought that's why this would be of interest for you guys. So that is another thing which is going to be coming up as part of when I get that Necron stuff back. In the meanwhile, I'm going to be working on the Ultramarines myself, and that will be one singular video which I put up once it's finished, and then the Necron one will be a separate video later also. So this is a whole ongoing thing from this point where I just basically showcase the Indomitus set completed. Now I'm going to show you guys how to build and clean and make a Space Marine if you have never done it before. Now I will also note these are from the monopose style. This is where they basically have little slots and pins where you can basically put them together. They kind of clip together almost. You barely even need glue, quite honestly. Now some people hate that because it means you can't pose them however you want to. But, you know, if you really wanted to, you can do that. It is a little bit more tricky. For myself personally, at this point in time, because I already have, again, a lot of models, I actually kind of don't mind this because you can kind of do it more quickly. On the other hand, there's times where there's a specific model where I want to do it and it can be just a bit of a pain in the ass. So it swings and roundabouts. But in the end, I'm just kind of like, it's much of a muchness. But I'll show you guys today what we're going to do. Now, also, today was an interesting one because I was like, I'm just gonna build this little guy. What can go wrong? It's just like one Space Marine. I've done 100 of these. This is gonna be no problem whatsoever. I can do it in one take. There's gonna be no issues. This goes about as badly as I could probably want it to, and rather than reshoot it, I thought it'd be more interesting to just kind of show you guys the mistakes that I make along the way. So bits and pieces to start off with. I've got a scalpel, I've got a couple of files, I've got some clippers to get the bits off of the sprue. Those are much better as well than just using kind of like, I don't know, scissors or your scalpel. I've got some Tamiya liquid cement, and I've got an emery board, and that's probably just about all you need. Okay, first off, we're going to have to find the pieces. So you're going to find in the instruction book the ones you want to build, and then you're going to find the sprue they're on. Now these are all A. Well, we find the A sprue, and you can see right here it says A, and immediately I'm off to a bad start by drawing pen on myself, and I was just like, wait, is this permanent? It's permanent. Okay, clipping off of the sprue. Now, as you can see here, I always want to clip a little bit away from the actual sort of joint piece itself. You can see here, look, you don't want to clip too close to the model because sometimes when you do that, the plastic can kind of shear and tear off from the piece itself. So you actually want to clip a little bit away and then clean that plastic off later with a scalpel and a file. So if you cut really tight, yes, you're not going to have to do so much of that cleaning, but it can potentially damage the sort of smooth edge of the model. Again, you might not care about that though, because you can always just disguise it as damage. If you ever make a mistake while you're kind of cleaning or cutting or whatever, or even painting, you can just disguise it later as damage. Just put a little bit of black on there with a little bit of a highlight and it'll cover it up, no worries at all. Okay, so then you got to clean the mold lines. This is critical and it triggers the hell out of me when people don't do this on a model. This is absolutely essential to make sure that your model is looking good, basically. So these little lines appear all the way across the model. Also, by the way, I decided that my scalpel blade was too dull, And whilst that is true, it ended up creating another problem in a little while. I will mention, by the way, at this point that there is blood involved here. Now you're going to just go around the model, and as you can see, round, 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 you're just going to find all those little seams, all those little mold lines, and clean them off using the scalpel. Now there's one piece here though on the edge, the sort of joint piece at the lower part of the leg, where there was a very heavy amount of plastic. So just using some good control, and that's the really important thing, using the scalpel here, using good control, you're just going to shave gently that plastic off. Much better to do a little at a time than go in and try to take it out in one go, because if you do that, you know, if you measure twice, cut once, you know, if you go in full on, you're much more likely to make a big mistake and carve a huge piece off of the model. So just take it off a little at a time, and then once you've got most of that off there, you can go in here, as you see, with the file and just smooth it off. Now if you really want to, these are just standard marines, you know, so whatever, but if this was a character model, you might go in here with some wet and dry paper. I've got some very fine, basically sandpaper. You can add a little bit of water and just really smooth that off. I would do that on a character model. I'm not going to do it on a just standard space marine. Again, the kind of reverse of that, sometimes you'll have little lines which need filling because maybe there's a gap between two pieces that you have joined together. Now you can get various bits and pieces for that. You can actually use the liquid cement itself if you kind of, you know, put that in there and then just sort of hold the two pieces together, and that can sometimes sort of seal that gap up. However, you can also use green stuff, which is basically just a two-part epoxy sort of putty to sort of fill in those gaps, or you can just use there's various different tubes. Tamiya make a good sort of sealant to go in there, and I've demonstrated that on the channel before, but there's basically a variety of different things you can use to seal gaps up, and then you'll just file those off again to get them nice and smooth. That's usually more of a thing to do on vehicles than models, but you know, it can be a thing. Okay, so then we need to see the construction and how we're going to construct this together. This was where another thing went catastrophically wrong for me, and I will totally put it in here and say, yep, I've made a load of these models, but this is a big mistake that I make here. And it was probably just that I was rushing it and not thinking through, but I am not too proud to admit when I make mistakes, because at the end of the day, who cares? But basically you can see I attached the blade here, and that's all fine and good. But then I was thinking, oh yeah, and then next we've got to do the head, and then we've got to get the chest on there, and then after that the other piece of the leg is sort of all just slide in onto the body. This is not true. If you go back and you look at the actual construction, you can see that you're supposed to add the sort of two legs, the two sort of torso elements together, and then the chest piece goes on last, which makes sense if you think about it. However, that is not what I did here. Now, one thing I will say, like I said, learning from mistakes, usually when I'm constructing these guys, I do not add tons and tons and tons of glue. Now that is very good news for me, because it means that I'm able to do this. I'm able to just, it's only been on there for a very short period of time, and I can pry that away, get the other piece in here, and then get that chest on there. Now if I just slathered it in glue, okay, sometimes that can not only, will it necessarily stick much stronger if it's had enough time to do so, or bond I should say, not stick, but it can also sort of just damage the model in terms of the glue getting everywhere. Now as I say, look, I was pointing out here how sharp this blade is, however it gets much worse as we go along. What I'm doing here is I'm drilling the barrel, so I make a little point here in the center with the scalpel, and then I'm going to get the little drill here. This is usually just like about a 2mm drill. You can get sort of 1mm, 2mm, 3mm, just a little hand drill. And I'm just going to use my finger as a guide to make sure that stays in the center. Just do it very carefully and drill the barrel out. Now again, some people don't care about this at all. It's something which I have started to find is an absolute necessity for me to do on models, and it really takes very minimal effort. It takes like 10 seconds, so it's totally worth doing in my opinion. And then you can see, okay, we've got the model, there's all the pieces, the gun, it looks fine, doesn't it? All good, no problem. So, you know, we've finished the model. Surely nothing can go wrong. What was this big mistake that Luton was talking about? He's finished the model. There's no problem. Well, I was looking at it here, and I was like, oh, this is all looking really good. Wait a minute, what is that? There's a little piece of plastic on the back of the knee plate. Well, I'll just get that out of there. Just get in there with the blade and just, oh, it's a bit tricky. It's a bit tricky. I'll just turn the blade around and just get on that. I'll just rest it against my finger, and oh. The blade is so sharp, I barely even touched it against my finger. This is the thing, if you have brand new scalpel blades, look how much it's bleeding. Basically, because the scalpel blades are so sharp, if you cut yourself even a tiny amount, it will bleed and bleed and bleed and bleed. So my top tip for the day, be careful with very sharp things. Okay. Now, although this is a monopose marine and you could just place all those pieces on there, what I wanted to show is that when I come to paint this guy, I will probably take these pieces off and do them individually so you can get the best coverage. That's it. That's how you build a Marine. Now I've just got to do it again and 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 again. So that's it, guys. Thank you very much indeed for watching. Hope you enjoyed my little overview of the Indomitus box set. Don't forget it's on sale tomorrow, 10 AM British time. I will have the updates of these armies in the future when I have got them done. The Ultramarines I will be smashing through myself as soon as possible. The Necrons will take a little bit longer, but I believe they will be well worth it as and when they arrive. So those are going to be coming in the future. In the meanwhile, I'm going to try and do some shorter lore vids for a little while, because I am quite burned out from doing basically what was that 3-hour marathon on the Inquisition. But of course, there is some other longer videos which I have on the horizon that I need to take care of. Thank you very much indeed for your support as always, guys. It makes a huge deal of difference to me, and I'm trying to work very hard to put out the best content I can for you guys. I know you always send me a load of fantastic positive messages, and that is all good, because the one thing we need right now is a lot of positivity for everybody out there. So I'll just say thanks very much, guys. Hope a lot of luck to you guys who want to pick up the box set tomorrow, and yep, good luck. I will see you next time.